The neon lights flickered against the polished lanes of Kingpin Alley, a buzzing bowling center packed with competitors ready to battle for the annual Kingpin Crown, an event known for drawing in some of the best bowlers in the region. The place was already lively with chatter and anticipation when suddenly, the entrance doors swung open, and a massive towering figure stepped inside, his presence alone enough to steal the breath from every person in the room. Big Shaq, the viral sensation known for his comedic rap and eccentric persona, had entered the bowling alley with a swagger unmatched, his heavy boots echoing against the tiled floor as he scanned the scene with an unreadable expression. Whispers erupted like wildfire as people nudged each other, pointing in disbelief, some even laughing at the absurdity of the situation. What was Big Shaq doing here, of all places? Dressed in his signature oversized jacket despite the comfortably warm temperature of the alley, he strode toward the registration desk, where a skeptical official adjusted his glasses and hesitantly asked, Mr. Shaq? Are you here to bowl? With a dramatic pause, Big Shaq slowly removed his jacket, revealing a custom bowling shirt with "Man's Not Hot" embroidered across the back, and in a deep, confident tone, he simply replied, "Lemme get dat Kingpin Crown fam." A wave of confusion rippled through the crowd as murmurs intensified. Surely this was a joke, right? A publicity stunt? Yet, before anyone could question him further, he had already signed his name onto the bracket, claiming one of the last available slots in the tournament. Some of the regulars chuckled, shaking their heads, already dismissing him as an easy first-round elimination, but a few keen-eyed spectators noticed something odd. The way he tested the weight of the bowling balls with a calculated precision, the way he scanned the lanes like a man who knew exactly what he was doing. Even more curious was his choice of ball. A pristine, midnight black, heavyweight sphere that seemed almost comically large, yet rested in his grip as though it were an extension of his own hand. The crowd gathered closer, their initial amusement giving way to intrigue, as the tournament was about to begin, and for the first time that night, a single thought passed through everyone's mind. Wait, what if he's actually serious? The tournament host, a middle-aged bowling veteran named Mike "Thunderhands" Carson, couldn't help but smirk as he watched Big Shaq confidently step into the players' area, stretching his arms as if he were about to perform on stage. "This is gonna be good," Thunderhands muttered under his breath, already sensing that this tournament had just taken a turn for the unexpected. The tournament was underway, and Big Shaq stood by his lane, adjusting his gloves with an exaggerated confidence that sent mixed signals to the onlookers. Was this just for show, or was there a hidden skill waiting to emerge? His first opponent, a seasoned bowler named Ricky "Splits" Morales, chuckled under his breath, shaking his head as he watched the viral star pick up his bowling ball with an almost lazy motion. "Let's get this over with," Ricky muttered, stepping up to the lane to roll first, delivering a textbook strike with practiced ease, his ball carving a flawless path down the oiled lane. A polite round of applause followed, but all eyes quickly returned to Shaq, waiting to see if he would even get close to landing a decent shot. With exaggerated showmanship, Shaq dramatically blew into his fingers, shuffled his feet, and lifted his ball as if it were a sacred artifact. Then, with a casual flick of his wrist, he sent the ball hurtling down the lane. Only, instead of a standard release, the ball seemed to hover for a split second before rolling with an almost supernatural smoothness. The crowd leaned in, watching as the heavyweight black sphere barreled down the lane like a heat-seeking missile. Crash. Pins exploded in every direction. A perfect strike. The alley fell into stunned silence, the only sound being the soft hum of the pin reset machine whirring back into position. Ricky froze, blinking in disbelief, while the rest of the audience exchanged glances, uncertain if they had just witnessed a fluke or something far more dangerous. Shaq, meanwhile, simply turned around and smirked, his expression unreadable, before casually dusting off his hands as if he had expected nothing less. The murmurs turned into scattered cheers, followed by an eruption of excitement as people scrambled to record on their phones, realizing that something incredible might be unfolding before them. "No way," someone whispered. "Man's really about to do this?" The tournament continued, and Shaq's second frame came up. This time, there were no antics, just pure focus. With a swift, almost effortless roll, the ball once again sliced through the lane like a blade through butter, crashing into the pins with precision. Another strike. The energy in the room shifted. What had started as a joke was quickly turning into something legendary. Shaq wasn't just getting lucky, he was dominating. His form, though unconventional, had a strange efficiency to it, a power and control that defied all expectations. More seasoned bowlers in the crowd began studying his technique, watching the subtle way he adjusted his stance, the barely perceptible flick of his fingers as he released the ball, the uncanny consistency of his power. It wasn't just brute force. There was something calculated, something almost professional about it. The social media feeds lit up with live reactions as streamers and influencers at the tournament began posting clips with captions like, "Big Shaq is actually a bowling demon?" And "From man's not hot to a man's strike shot?" By the time Shaq landed his fourth consecutive strike, the energy in Kingpin Alley had transformed into that of a major sporting event. Spectators, who had initially written him off, were now standing on chairs, clapping, cheering, and even chanting his name. Shaq. Shaq. Opponents who had been laughing at him minutes earlier were now shifting nervously, whispering strategies to each other, trying to figure out how to break his rhythm. But Shaq wasn't listening. He was locked in. His movements became sharper, his rolls even cleaner, and with every strike, the disbelief in the room only grew stronger. "How is he doing this?" one commentator shouted, his voice barely audible over the roar of the crowd. The tournament leaderboard was updating rapidly, and to everyone's shock, Shaq had now surpassed several high-ranking competitors. His unthinkable journey from underdog to a legitimate threat had officially begun. The once skeptical tournament host, Thunderhands Carson, could only shake his head in amazement, rubbing his chin as he watched Shaq dismantle his lane with precision. "This ain't just some celebrity stunt," he muttered under his breath. "We might actually be witnessing history." The energy in Kingpin Alley was no longer just excitement. It was absolute chaos. By now, Big Shaq had bowled 6 consecutive strikes, and the tournament had officially transformed into a full-blown spectacle. The once doubtful audience was now completely invested, chanting his name between frames and recording every throw like they were witnessing the rise of a legend. But not everyone was celebrating. A handful of high-level bowlers, including regional champions and alley regulars, were not amused. Among them was Vince "the Machine" Delacroix, a man who had spent over a decade perfecting his craft, boasting multiple championship wins. His perfect posture and robotic precision had earned him his nickname, and tonight, he had walked into Kingpin Alley expecting nothing less than another victory to add to his collection. But now, all anyone could talk about was a viral rapper who had seemingly defied physics for 6 straight frames. Vince tightened his grip around his custom-engraved gold-trimmed bowling ball, his nostrils flaring as he studied Shaq's every move. "No way this dude is legit," he muttered under his breath. "I don't care who he is. He's not making a fool out of this tournament." As the tournament brackets progressed, the competition was thinning out, leaving only the best bowlers in the final rounds. Vince knew that it wouldn't be long before he faced Shaq, and he was determined to put an end to the madness. But he wasn't alone. Other top competitors, including Marcus "Thunderstrike" Reyes, a left-handed powerhouse, and Dexter "Deadeye" McGraw, known for his sniper-like accuracy, were already discussing their strategies in hushed tones. "We need to make him crack," Dexter whispered. "We break his streak, we break his momentum." They didn't know how Shaq was doing it, but they were convinced of one thing: he had to be stopped. Meanwhile, Shaq was still untouched. He had just rolled his 7th strike, and if the crowd had been loud before, they were now on the verge of a riot. Even casual spectators who had come just for a fun night out were now fully locked in, screaming like they were at a championship game. The bowling alley had turned into a stadium. The tournament host, Thunderhands Carson, could only shake his head and chuckle. "This is absolutely insane," he muttered to himself. "Nobody saw this coming." Then came the moment of truth: Shaq versus Vince. The two stood side by side, with the entire tournament watching. Vince's expression was cold, serious, like he was stepping into a heavyweight boxing match. Shaq, on the other hand, had a casual smirk on his face, adjusting his bowling gloves like he was just warming up. But inside, he knew this was the real test. Vince was no amateur. He had seen countless hot streaks in his career, and he had broken them all. Vince stepped up first. He took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, and with mechanical precision, launched his ball down the lane. The impact was clean. Strike. The crowd cheered, but it wasn't the same energy as before. This was different. It was a warning shot. A message. Shaq stepped up. The alley went silent. Phones were out. The world was watching. He exhaled, lifted his ball, took 2 slow steps forward. And then, he unleashed a shot so smooth, so powerful, it was as if the ball had been guided by fate itself. Strike. The alley erupted. Pandemonium. Vince clenched his jaw. This was going to be a war. Frame after frame, the battle continued. Every shot was an answer. Every strike was a counter. The tension in the alley was suffocating, with the two locked in an unrelenting exchange of precision, power, and pure determination. But something unbelievable happened. As the pressure mounted, Vince, the seasoned pro, cracked first. On his next frame, with sweat glistening on his forehead, he released his shot with just the slightest hesitation. The ball veered 1 inch too far right. 9 pins. The crowd gasped. Vince's eyes widened in horror. His perfect streak was over. Shaq didn't hesitate. Another perfect strike. And with that, Big Shaq had taken down the machine. The building shook with the force of the cheers. Shaq turned around, pointed at the scoreboard, and in his classic deep voice, simply said, "Next." With Vince, the machine Delacroix eliminated, a new energy surged through Kingpin Alley. Shaq wasn't just competing anymore, he was dominating. The tension in the air was thick, the kind that made even seasoned players nervous. The crowd, once filled with skeptics, had transformed into die-hard believers, chanting his name between frames, their voices growing louder with each passing strike. He was now at 10 consecutive strikes. 2 more. That was all that separated Big Shaq from bowling immortality. The entire tournament had changed. This wasn't about a trophy anymore. This was about witnessing history. People were no longer just watching. They were living every role, every frame, every impossible shot. Social media was in a frenzy. The hashtags #ShaqStrike and #Man's Not Hot But Man's Perfect were trending worldwide. Sports analysts were scrambling to analyze his form. Bowling legends were logging on to watch the live stream, unable to believe what they were hearing. Even Thunderhands Carson, the tournament host, had stopped his usual commentary, standing off to the side, rubbing his chin in awe. "I've been in this sport for 35 years, he murmured to himself. "I ain't never seen anything like this." But Shaq wasn't celebrating yet. His eyes were locked on the lane, his expression unreadable. He knew he was close. Too close. And that's when it happened. His next opponent, Marcus "Thunderstrike" Reyes, stepped up to bowl. Unlike Vince, Marcus wasn't interested in playing mind games. He was a powerhouse, known for launching bowling balls down lanes at terrifying speeds, crushing pins with sheer brute force. If anyone could disrupt Shaq's momentum, it was him. Marcus took his shot. Strike. The crowd cheered, but their energy wasn't for him. All eyes were still on Shaq. Shaq stepped up, cracked his neck, and lifted his ball. Silence fell over the room. His fingers found their place. He exhaled. 1 step. 2. 3. The ball rolled. It glided across the lane like it was meant to be there. A perfect arc. A perfect path. Crash. Strike. 11. The bowling alley nearly collapsed under the weight of the explosion of cheers. People were on their feet, screaming, recording, calling friends, tweeting, live streaming. Shaq turned, his expression still dead serious. 1 more frame. This was it. The final boss of bowling. A perfect 300 game. Only the greatest had ever done it. Some had spent their entire lives chasing it. And now, Big Shaq, a man who had walked into this alley as a complete joke, was 1 shot away from greatness. But the pressure was immense. People were now surrounding the lanes. Even the bowling alley staff had stopped working, gathering near the edges, holding their breath. Marcus stepped up. He had nothing to lose, so he threw with everything he had. Boom, another strike. It was a great shot. But it didn't matter. Because tonight wasn't about him. It was about Big Shaq. Shaq stepped forward. He placed his ball in the return slot and wiped his palms against his pants. His heart was racing now. The weight of the moment was finally catching up to him. And then, something strange happened. A single bead of sweat rolled down his forehead. Shaq reached up and wiped it away. Someone in the crowd gasped. Wait, is he getting hot? A wave of panic surged through the alley. The prophecy, the meme, the legend of man's not hot. Could it be coming undone? Shaq froze. His breathing slowed. He knew the internet was watching. He knew history was watching. No. Not tonight. Not now. Shaq rolled his shoulders back, took a deep breath, and locked in. This was his moment. He lifted his ball, found his grip. Time slowed. 1 step. 2, 3. Release. The ball rolled down the lane. Every person in the building held their breath. Even the air itself seemed to pause. The ball traveled perfectly. A smooth, controlled motion, curving into the pocket, lining up for what would be the most legendary strike in Kingpin Alley history. But just before impact, Shaq turned around. He didn't even watch it hit. The second he released it, he knew. And then, boom. Strike. Perfection. The crowd erupted. People were leaping out of their seats, hugging strangers, throwing drinks in the air, crying. The bowling alley had officially transformed into a concert. Shaq lifted both hands into the air as the scoreboard flashed. 300. A perfect game. Big Shaq had done it. The cameras were rolling. The world was watching. And the only words he spoke as the bowling alley lost its collective mind? Man's not a hot. The moment the scoreboard flashed 300, chaos erupted inside Kingpin Alley. The sound was deafening. Cheers, screams, chants, and even the clatter of bowling balls rolling off abandoned lanes as players rushed toward Shaq in disbelief. Drinks were flying, phones were raised high, and people pounded on tables like they were at a championship boxing match. In all the years that Kingpin Alley had been hosting tournaments, never had anything like this happened. A viral rapper, who had stepped into the building as a joke, had just bowled a perfect game. And the best part? He didn't even look at his final shot. Bro, he walked away like an anime character. A fan screamed, his voice cracking from the sheer hype overload. A woman in the crowd was hyperventilating. Another guy had dropped to his knees, clutching his head like he had just witnessed the miraculous. Some fans were literally in tears, overwhelmed by the insanity of the moment. At the center of it all, Big Shaq stood motionless. He wasn't celebrating. He wasn't yelling. He was just standing there, hands in his pockets, nodding his head to the beat of the clamor surrounding him. The internet exploded. Within seconds, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok were flooded with clips. Film projector, Shaq just bowled a 300 and walked off like a final boss. Film projector, Big Shaq didn't even watch his final strike. Legendary. Film projector, man's really not hot. He ice cold. The Kingpin Alley livestream, which had started the night with barely a few hundred viewers, had now climbed to nearly 500,000 people watching worldwide. Even professional sports analysts were logging on mid-broadcast, abandoning their scheduled segments just to witness the madness. Shaq finally took a slow step forward, turning toward the massive crowd that had formed around him. And then, he simply held up his fingers. 1, 2, 3. The crowd lost it. He's counting the strikes, someone screamed. Bro, he's saying it was too easy. He knew. He knew he was built for this. Even Thunderhands Carson, the tournament host who had seen every kind of bowler walk through these doors, was speechless. He had planned on giving some kind of closing commentary, but what was there to even say? History had just been made. Shaq casually reached down and picked up his bowling ball, the midnight black sphere that had just cemented his place in bowling immortality. The lighting from the alley reflected off its surface, making it gleam as he rolled it between his hands like a basketball. Then, he turned to face the eliminated competitors. Specifically, Vince, the Machine, Delacroix. Vince, still struggling to process his loss, had been sitting at the back of the alley in stunned silence. His entire career had been built on precision and perfection. Yet tonight, he had been reduced to a supporting character in someone else's legacy. Shaq locked eyes with him. A beat passed. Then Shaq lifted his bowling ball and tossed it to Vince. Vince caught it, his fingers instinctively slipping into the finger holes. The crowd gasped. Then Shaq, in his deep, unmistakable voice, simply said, "Hold that, fam." The eruption of cheers that followed could have cracked the earth. Vince's expression twisted with disbelief, frustration, and respect. He looked down at the ball, gripping it tightly before glancing back at Shaq. And then, he nodded. Respect. The entire bowling community had just been flipped upside down. Shaq turned back to the crowd, adjusting his still fully zipped jacket, and as the audience roared in celebration, he simply muttered, "Man's still not hot." With that, he walked off the lanes, leaving behind a legacy that would be talked about for years. The perfect game. The ultimate clutch moment. And the most legendary bowling performance in history. The fallout from Big Shaq's perfect game was immediate, global, and nothing short of electrifying. In the hours that followed, Kingpin Alley became an epicenter of attention, with people from around the world clamoring for interviews, details, and reactions. But it wasn't just the fans that were left in awe. Even the bowling community couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. News outlets scrambled to cover the event, with sports broadcasters and viral media channels offering analysis and reactions. Bowling forums, typically filled with the calm chatter of seasoned pros, were suddenly on fire, flooded with threads like "Shaquille O'Neal, bowling's new king?" and "Is Shaq the greatest bowler ever?" The sport's longtime enthusiasts couldn't help but speculate. Was it just a fluke, or was Big Shaq a true bowling phenomenon? Social media was flooded with hashtags, memes, and viral clips from the night. Fans, both old and new, found themselves captivated by the unlikeliest of sports heroes. Hashtags like #MansNotHotButBowlingPro and #BigShaq300 trended for days, and the video of his final strike was viewed millions of times across platforms. It wasn't just a perfect game, it was a moment. A symbol of what happens when the unexpected becomes reality. Even the professional bowling circuit took notice. Within 48 hours, calls were being made from some of the most prestigious bowling leagues, eager to extend an invitation to Shaq to participate in upcoming tournaments. Sponsors and endorsements poured in, with brands eager to sign the man who had redefined the sport overnight. Bowling ball manufacturers were sending him personalized products, while major clothing companies were itching to put his name on exclusive gear. But it wasn't just the professional world that embraced Shaq, it was the community. Kingpin Alley, where the moment had all begun, found itself overwhelmed with reservations and inquiries. The bowling alley's owner, Terry "Big Red" Wilson, found himself in the spotlight as he was interviewed on news channels, sharing his thoughts about the incredible event. "We never thought anyone could make history like this," Terry said in his interview, his voice full of awe. Big Shaq didn't just bowl a perfect game, he brought the sport back into the spotlight. He's a legend. And legend was exactly the word people were using. The viral sensation that was Big Shaq, once known for his viral rap, his larger-than-life personality, and his comedic sketches, had now added another title to his resume: bowling legend. Everywhere he went, people hailed him as the greatest, and he wasn't about to let it go to his head. Shaq's humility was perhaps the most surprising thing about the whole affair. While he was enjoying the attention, he kept his focus grounded, never forgetting where he came from. At every turn, he would jokingly downplay his perfection, saying things like, "I'm just out here trying to have fun. But if I broke the game, that's cool, too." He also made it clear that the night wasn't just about him, it was about bringing people together. The bowling community had witnessed the impossible, and Shaq was determined to use his platform to help elevate the sport. And elevate it he did. Big Shaq's viral moment started a wave of interest in bowling, particularly in younger generations. Bowling alleys across the country reported record-breaking turnouts. Even casual players who'd never picked up a ball before began signing up for local leagues, eager to experience the thrill of the game for themselves. The sport was officially experiencing a rebirth, all thanks to the unexpected superstar who had managed to stun the world. But the question remained, what next for Big Shaq? In the following months, Shaq's role in the sport became undeniable. Bowling tournaments that once barely registered in the public's eye now featured Big Shaq as their headline attraction. Local youth leagues and charity events invited him to participate, where he would often show up to bowl for fun, occasionally sparking impromptu perfect games just to prove it wasn't a one-off. He even began making appearances on various talk shows and sports programs, giving fans a behind-the-scenes look at his bowling practice routines, showing off his unorthodox style and revealing the secret behind his success. It's all about the rhythm, baby. You gotta feel the lane, let the ball flow. Just like a good dunk, you know. However, as his celebrity grew, so did the rivalry. Top bowlers from around the world saw him as both a challenge and an opportunity. Vince, the Machine Delacroix, still stung from his defeat, made it his personal mission to dethrone Shaq, vowing to return to the lane to face him again. Marcus, Thunderstrike, Reyes also began to train harder, challenging Shaq to a rematch that was destined to become a spectacle. The perfect game wasn't just a singular moment in time, it was a beginning. And it was clear to everyone, especially Shaq, that his bowling journey was just getting started. In the end, Big Shaq became more than a name, he became an icon. His story wasn't just about a perfect game, it was about proving that anyone, no matter their background, could break barriers and become a legend. And in doing so, he not only took home the title of Kingpin, but he reshaped the future of bowling for generations to come. His legacy wasn't just in the perfect score, it was in the hearts of the fans, the inspiration he gave, and the fact that a legend had just begun. Shaquille O'Neal, bowling champion, legend, and now a part of history.